Hello and welcome to your internal rotation hip mobility workout. What you'll need for today is a block and a low surface, probably like a step or a stool or an ottoman. All right, so we're going to start with some hip drop blocks. You're going to bring your block to the mat. And if you want a little more height, you can use 2 blocks. 1 block is just fine as well. So if it bothers you to be on the floor with your knee, you can use your ottoman. Also for this as well. So you're going to pop one knee up onto your ottoman and we're going to do some hip drops here, right? So this foot goes back and we'll do these hip drops, right? So if that other knee is bothering you, that's a modification. Otherwise, we're going to bring the right knee onto the block, hands on the floor, and then stack your right hip right over your right knee. So this is really important that we keep those knees stacked. We don't want to sit too far back because we're going to miss the bulk of the benefit. Right. So your right knee is on the block, your left leg is floating, but your knees are close together. All right. So from here, you're going to drop that left knee towards the floor, let your right hip pop up into the ceiling, and then lift that left knee all the way up and then drop it back down. So you're gliding that left knee right next to your right knee. And what we're releasing here is the back of the right hip. So go up and down here, moving into that right hip socket, using that femur. You can feel that femur moving back into the hip socket and back into the deep hip pocket muscles. All right, so keep going here. I'm going to rotate this way so you can see from this side. So my knee is up on the block and we're dropping down and then lifting all the way back up. So my floating knee is staying very close to the knee on the block. And what you'll feel here is some release as that left knee comes down to the floor. So we're going to stay here for about a minute. If you'd like to do more than that, that's great. You can set a timer for 2 minutes. Go for 2 minutes. It's a really great mobility practice for opening up the back of the hip, especially if you have a lot of back pain. This is really good. All right. So if you are over on the ottoman, you're doing the same motion. Your bottom knee is floating down. You're trying to get as much movement out of the knee that's on the ottoman or the block. All right, now last one here, you're going to drop that left knee towards the floor and then lean towards the right. So it's really important that that right hip stay right over that right knee. So you're getting a lot of stretch here in the deep obturator internus down here in the bottom of the hip. So this lean is a really good one. Try to relax that right leg. You can feel free to come in and out of it if that helps you get a little more release here. If you start to feel any nerviness or tingling, don't go as far, right? We don't have to stretch it and get too much mobility so we start to impinge any nerves. We don't want that. All right, just a couple more leans here and then we'll switch to the other side. Awesome, good. You can come off that block. Ooh, feel all that spaciousness. And then the block comes underneath the left knee. So same setup here. Make sure your hip is right over your knee, not pitched too far back, right? Right over the knee. Hands and knees. If your hands are bothering you, you can come up onto your fists. Good. And then that right knee drops down towards the floor and you lift all the way up. Right knee is gliding towards your left knee. And imagine that femur bone, the leg bone of your left leg, pressing into this back hip, right? So we're getting a lot of spaciousness being created back here in the back of the hip. Good. Go with intention. And again, can set a timer for 1 minute, 2 minutes. If you really like this and you want to pause the video and continue doing it, that's excellent, right? Really get a lot of benefit out of this. Good. All right, stay here. Keep going. I'm going to show you from this angle one more time so you can get a visual on the back side. Knees stay close together, really working into that hip. And even try to let go. Try not to clench your glutes in this position, right? Let go of the glute. You're dropping straight down. All right, next time your right knee is floating down towards the floor, you're going to lean towards the left. Go straight out to the side. And then we can come in and out here, going side to side, dropping that right knee closer to the floor. So you can really feel that length and space being created in the back of the hip. Ooh, if you tend towards external rotation, this is an excellent way to break up all that tightness that comes into your tailbone and into your sit bones, right? You have to do a lot of work to try to get those external rotators to calm down. Good. Just one more lean here. Awesome. Come all the way back. Come off of your block. Ooh, yeah. Shake out your hips a little bit. Awesome. Come on up, shake it out a little bit. Come onto all fours. We don't need the block for this one, but we're going to take the hands forward, bring your knees underneath your hips, and then take your knees or your feet, your ankles out to the side, right? So from this angle, my feet are coming out to the side, and popping them out. So pop your feet out, bring your knees towards each other like you're squeezing a block, and then we're going to sit back into your heels. Your range of motion may not be very big here, and that's okay, right? We're going to go back, press those shins down into the floor, and then come all the way back up, and then go back. If this bothers your knee at all, do one leg at a time. So you can bring that left leg forward and just sit back into your right leg, right? We're really trying to get that shin out to the side and getting that femur to move back in the hip socket and internally rotating here. Good. So go in and out here. If you want to just do one side at a time, you can feel free to do that. Switch sides, the other side. Press that foot out to the sides. You're internally rotating that leg as you're going in and out. If anything feels like it needs to pop, come out of that range of motion a little bit. Good. And then you can retry again with both knees together, feet out, and go back and just see if that is a little more spacious now. Good. So as you're sitting back, you want to think of flaring that tailbone back, right? You can even work at your end range here, in and out. Soften. Sometimes when we go to our end range, the muscles want to contract to keep us from going in our end range. So by hanging out in that end range a little bit, we can let the muscles know that it's okay and they'll start to release, right? So your knees are together, close together, not touching, feet are apart. Great. Good. All right, come back to center, shake out your hips. Fantastic. All right, now we're going to take the right knee over your left, right? Cross the knees over. You feel free to keep your feet wide if that feels better for you, or you can bring the feet together this way, which will help you get even more internal rotation in the knees, right? Now we're going to sit back into your right hip. This front knee, you're going to press down into the floor. You'll feel that extension in the back hip. As soon as you press that front knee into the floor, you'll feel that extension. We're going to go in and out of this. So come forward and then go all the way back. Good. And forward and all the way back. Good. Just stay here. As you're pressing back, press that front knee down into the floor. So you're shifting your hips back a little bit and try to release the glute of the back leg, right? It's going to want to try to anchor in and engage. Try to let it go. Try to release it. Good. Right knee comes forward. Good. Awesome. Two more here. Deep breaths. We're really working good internal rotation. Awesome. Good. Come back through the center. We're going to switch sides. Shake it out. Left knee over right knee. Bring those knees together, feet together. Good. And then sit back into your right hip. Bring your left knee forward. So what this looks like, it's super subtle, but when your heels are together, right, you're pressing your right knee forward, the front knee forward, you're going to press forward. Watch in my hips, my right hip is going to move back in space, right? So here I'm even, I press through that front knee and my back hip, this right hip goes back further, right? So then you can stretch from an even deeper place. Good. Really rock back. Send that left hip forward, left knee forward as you're pressing back. So you're really getting into the belly of the muscle. And breathe. Good. Yeah. And if flexibility is a challenge and you can't bring your heels together, you can absolutely sit here with your feet wide, right? And press that front knee down into the floor to get more extension in the back of the hip. Good. Nice. One more here. Good. And come all the way back to the center. Awesome. Shake it out. Whew, great. All right, you're going to come down to your side, grab your ball. If you don't have a ball, you can also use the end of a foam roller. If you have a short foam roller, that's a good thing too. But we're going to take a block is a little challenging because it doesn't let your legs move that much, but you're going to bring the ball between your knees. These are called iliacus pullbacks. Now, if this is a challenge, don't worry. Sometimes I can find this is a little bit challenging to find in the back of the hip without the hip flexors engaging. We'll talk about it in the live session because this is one we always have to troubleshoot a little bit. But bring your knees around the block, take your hand on your hip, make sure your hip flexor is nice and relaxed, right? Make sure it's soft right here. Good. So keep your ribs nice and engaged back. We don't have to find a lot of tension in the core, but we just don't want to have any movement in the ribs, right? This top leg, you're going to shift it forward towards the wall in front of you, right? Let it go. Make sure that hip flexor stays nice and soft, right? You're going to feel spaciousness in the back of the hip, and then take that femur, move it back in space all the way back. Again, check on that hip flexor, make sure it's not moving. Good. So this is very similar to the block drops that we did, but side lying, and you get the full range of motion here. So this is what we've been prepping for, right? So your upper body stays quiet, just finding this movement in the hips. Good. Rolling forward and rolling back. Good. If you find it hard to not engage that hip flexor, you can put your feet on a wall, which can help you kind of release in those hip flexors a little bit. Good. For now, let's just go forward and back. Yeah, so what we're working towards is this femur bone moving all the way back in the hip sockets. We're creating a lot of space back here in the back of the hips. Good. Last one here. Fantastic. Good. Let's go over to the other side to see the difference between left and right. So side lying, lay your head on your arm, ball between your knees, or foam roller. If you have a foam roller, it's this way, right? You're going to roll on it like a rolling pin. Upper back is 90 degrees to the feet. Upper back stays still, right? So as you're moving your hips, you don't want to have your chest moving as well. It's not for thoracic rotation. It's only for your hips. So squeeze that ball with your knees. Make sure that hip flexor is nice and relaxed. And then we're going to drop that knee forward towards the wall in front of you. Again, check in with that hip flexor, and then all the way back. Stay nice and still in that hip flexor, right? If you tend to notice that you're bringing that knee into your chest, that's going to engage that hip flexor. So try to drop that hip down all the way back and then forward. Good. I find these are a really good one to do in front of the TV because you can be nice and calm and just relaxed. You really need to be relaxed when you do these. If we try to muscle through it, that's when we start to lose some of that range of motion in the back of the hip. Good. So think of that femur bone moving back into the hip socket all the way back. Good. And all the way forward. Keep the upper body nice and quiet and all the way back. Now, you might notice also that one side, it might be harder to find that range of motion all the way back in the back of the hip. Good. Nice. Good. And one more here, all the way back. Fantastic. Good. And then come back to the center. All right. We're going to come up to stand and come on over to your ottoman or your stair. We're going to do a little movement here just to reinforce that mobility that we just created. So coming up to stand. So we're going to take your left leg forward, right leg back. You're going to use your ottoman. The right foot goes on the ottoman behind you. Your left foot steps forward. So you're a little further away from the ottoman back here. Your back leg is bent, right? Your hips are going to stay perfectly still as you're rotating. So this rotation is happening in the back of the hips. Your chest is staying nice and still. You're using your deep core. Now you're going to take your right hand, you're going to bend your left knee, bring your right hand to the instep of your left leg. So reach down, grab that instep. You can tap it here, right? So your chest is rotating, your hip is rotating. This rotation is happening from your hip. This hip is moving back in space. And then exhale, drive through your back leg, front leg, come up, right? Inhale all the way down, send that left hip back, right hand on the instep, and exhale, come up, right? Your upper body is staying really still. Rotation is coming from your hip. Send the hip back, touch the instep, and then come all the way back up. Good. So what I don't want to see is Rounding this way, right? Tucking the tailbone under. You want to send that hip back, reach your chest forward, and this hip bone is moving back. The leg bone is moving into the hip, and the hip is moving back. Now, a note here. So we're going to do about 20 of these, 15 to 20 of them, but a note about that front knee. So if your left leg is forward, when you come down, you want your chest to stay nice and straight, right? So your chest stays straight, you're reaching down, tapping, this hip is moving back in space. Notice what happens in this front knee. Oftentimes I'll see that knee come out to the side. That's where using external rotation. Bring that knee in towards your right arm and send that left hip back, right? And then drive through that hip. So what you should feel is when you come down, you feel a nice expansion in the back of that hip, right? Back hip muscles are expanding. And as you come up, you're feeling that glute really firing, right? Left knee comes towards the right elbow and then all the way back up. Awesome. So 15 to 20, maybe even 10. Go for good range of motion and good form on these, right? You should not feel these in your low back. You should not feel them as strained in your upper back. We'll do the other side. So right leg forward, left leg back. Same thing here. Find your good distance. Left hand comes down to the instep of your right foot. So just do one, check it out. Send that right hip back, right knee towards your left elbow. Right? Your chest is in line with your hips. Exhale, come all the way back up to stand. So the movement is happening from the hips, not from the chest, right? Inhale, come all the way down, tap the instep of the foot, send that right hip back, and exhale, drive up. Whoop. Sometimes you might lose your balance, and that's okay. Inhale down, send the hip back, and exhale. Good. Now, a reminder of that front knee. Front knee tracks right over that middle toe, and exhale, come up. Awesome. I'm going to show you from this position too, right? Left hip moves towards that right knee moves towards the left elbow. Stay here, hip goes back, right? This knee is moving towards that elbow. Drive through the heel, come up. Good, awesome. 5, 10, 20, as many as you can do. Getting into that back hip, finding that expansion as you go down and the contraction as you lift up. Fantastic. All right. Once you finish that, let's take a nice big lift overhead. Good. Exhale, fold all the way forward over your legs. Nice. Turn your toes in. Rock side to side with your upper back. Let go of any tension in your neck and shoulders. Good. And then heel toe your feet together a little bit. Bend your knees. Take your hands on your knees and we'll straighten one leg at a time. So you can look over your right shoulder with your left knee bent. Come back to center, straighten your left leg, look over your left shoulder, back to center, one more time each side, and open, back to center, and open, back to center. Good. Hang forward, big breaths into your back, coming all the way up to stand. Fantastic. Excellent work.